Jamie Dornan's Lost interviews, unveiling hidden clues about his love story. There is a particular kind of truth that never announces itself. It does not arrive with declarations or confessions. Instead, it lingers in pauses, in glances held a second too long, in the way a smile softens when no one is asking for it. These are the truths that slip through the cracks of rehearsed answers and polished narratives. And when one looks closely at Jamie Dornan's interviews across the years, these are the truths that seem to surface again and again. This is not a story about scandal or revelation. It is a story about constancy. About how love, when deeply rooted, does not need to be displayed to be present, and how it can quietly shape the way a person moves through the world, even under the glare of public attention. The public man and the private core. Jamie Dornan has spent much of his career navigating dual identities. To the public, he is the actor, charismatic, self-deprecating, often humorous in interviews, and disarmingly candid about his discomfort with fame. To casting directors and audiences, he has embodied a wide range of characters: troubled, intense, romantic, morally conflicted. But beneath these shifting roles, there has always been a sense of something steady, an emotional center that does not waver with success or scrutiny. Interviewers often remark on it without quite naming it: a groundedness, a calm, a sense that no matter how surreal the circumstances, global fame, controversial roles, sudden celebrity, Dornan remains anchored to something beyond the industry. That anchor, many observers believe, is love. Not love as spectacle, but love as foundation. The early interviews, searching without saying so. In Jamie Dornan's earlier interviews, before his career reached its most visible heights, there is a restlessness that surfaces between jokes. He speaks openly about uncertainty, about not knowing where he belongs within the acting world, about the oddness of transitioning from modeling to film. His humor often functions as a shield, quick, self-aware, lightly deflective. Yet even then, there are moments where his tone shifts. When conversations drift toward home, toward music, toward relationships, his voice lowers almost imperceptibly. The cadence changes. Answers become shorter, more deliberate. It is in these moments that one senses a boundary. He is not evasive, he is selective. This selectivity suggests not secrecy born of fear, but protection born of value. Some things, the interviews imply, matter too much to be overexplained. Amelia Warner, a presence without performance. Amelia Warner rarely appears in Jamie Dornan's interviews, and when she does, it is never as a headline. She exists in the margins, in passing references, in anecdotes shared without elaboration, in the way Dornan's expression changes when her name arises. Observers have noted that when he speaks about his wife, his humor softens. The irony drops away. There is no performative charm, no carefully crafted soundbite. Instead, there is a quiet sincerity that feels unpolished in the best possible way. In a media landscape that often rewards oversharing, this restraint feels almost radical. What emerges is the sense that their relationship is not something Dornan uses to define himself publicly, but something that defines him privately, and therefore does not require constant articulation. The language of the eyes. One of the most telling aspects of Dornan's interviews is not what he says, but how he looks while listening. In group interviews or press junkets, when questions turn toward relationships, intimacy, or emotional vulnerability, his gaze often shifts, not away, but inward. There is a momentary pause, as though he is checking his words against an internal compass. This is particularly noticeable when interviewers attempt to draw parallels between his on-screen romantic roles and his real life. Dornan frequently resists these comparisons, gently but firmly. His eyes convey something his words do not fully express, a clear distinction between performance and reality. It is not discomfort, it is clarity. He knows where the line is, and he does not cross it. Love as a stabilizing force. As Dornan's fame intensified, particularly during periods of global attention, his interviews took on a noticeably steadier tone. Where others might show signs of strain or self-importance, he remained remarkably even-keeled. When asked how he manages the pressures of visibility, his answers often return to themes of normalcy, family, routine, home. He speaks of grounding influences, of stepping away from the noise, of prioritizing what matters. These are not abstract concepts in his language. They are lived realities. Though he rarely elaborates, the implication is clear. His private life is not an escape from his public one, but its counterbalance. Unspoken affection. Affection does not always announce itself through grand gestures. Sometimes, it reveals itself through consistency. Across years of interviews, Dornan's demeanor remains remarkably unchanged when speaking about love and partnership. There is no evolution toward cynicism, no performative declarations, no attempts to mythologize his relationship. Instead, there is a quiet repetition of values: respect, privacy, commitment. This repetition suggests endurance. In an industry often defined by transience, the steadiness of his tone feels significant. It implies that love, for Dornan, is not a phase or a narrative arc, but a constant presence, one that does not need reinvention to remain meaningful. The smile that isn't for the camera. Perhaps the most revealing moments occur unexpectedly. A question ends. The interviewer looks down at their notes. The camera lingers just a fraction longer than intended. And in that brief interval, Dornan smiles, not the practiced smile of a public figure, but something smaller, more personal. It is a smile that seems to belong elsewhere. Observers have described it as unguarded, almost absent-minded, a smile that suggests thought rather than performance. In these moments, it is easy to imagine that his mind has wandered, to a memory, a person, a sense of belonging that exists beyond the interview room. These moments are fleeting, but they linger in the mind precisely because they are not meant to be seen. Protective silence. Silence, too, can be an act of love. Dornan's consistent refusal to overshare about his marriage has occasionally been misread as evasiveness. But when viewed in context, it reads differently. It reads as intention. In a culture that often commodifies intimacy, choosing silence can be a form of preservation. By not narrating his relationship for public consumption, Dornan allows it to remain what it is: lived, evolving, and unobserved. This choice speaks volumes about his priorities. It suggests that love, for him, is not validated by visibility. It exists independently of audience approval. How love shapes performance. Interestingly, as Dornan's personal life appears increasingly settled, his performances grow more nuanced. He brings greater emotional depth to characters wrestling with internal conflict, vulnerability, and restraint. While it would be reductive to attribute artistic growth solely to personal happiness, it is difficult to ignore the parallel. A person who feels secure in their private life often has greater freedom to explore emotional risk in their work. Dornan's interviews hint at this without stating it outright. He speaks of confidence gained not from success, but from stability. Of risk-taking made possible by knowing there is something solid waiting beyond the set. Love, in this sense, becomes not a distraction from art, but its quiet enabler. A narrative hidden in plain sight. What makes Jamie Dornan's interviews so compelling is not that they reveal secrets, but that they reveal patterns. The lowered voice. The softened smile. The refusal to overexplain. The repeated return to home as a point of reference. Taken individually, these details might seem insignificant. Together, they form an unspoken narrative, one of enduring affection, mutual respect, and emotional anchoring. It is a love story told not through confession, but through consistency. The strength of the unseen. There is a quiet confidence that comes from knowing who you are beyond public perception. Dornan seems to possess this confidence not because he has nothing to prove, but because what matters most to him exists outside the frame. In interview after interview, this confidence manifests as ease. as humor without desperation, as openness without exhibitionism, as warmth without performance. It is the confidence of someone who is loved, and who knows it. Conclusion: love that leaves a trace. Jamie Dornan's interviews do not tell a love story in the conventional sense. There are no dramatic revelations, no carefully curated romantic narratives. Instead, there is something subtler and arguably more compelling: the trace of love as a shaping force. It is present in how he listens, in how he answers, in how he chooses silence over spectacle. True affection, when deeply rooted, does not demand attention. It shapes behavior quietly, persistently, leaving its mark not through declaration, but through demeanor. In unearthing these lost interviews, these overlooked moments of tone and gesture, we do not uncover secrets. We uncover something far more resonant: a portrait of love that endures precisely because it remains largely unseen. And in that restraint, there is a rare and powerful kind of honesty.